The views expressed on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast are that of Jerry Cahill and guests, and not necessarily those of the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Nothing on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast should be considered medical advice. Such advice can only be given by a physician who is experienced with cystic fibrosis. The Boomer Esiason Foundation, Jerry Cahill and guests cannot be held responsible for any damage which may result from using the information on this podcast without the permission of your medical doctor. You're listening to the Jerry Cahill CF podcast presented by the Boomer Esiason Foundation and jerrycahill.com.
Welcome to Jerry Cahill's CF Unmasked podcast series. In a world where everyone wears a mask, it's nice to see a soul. This show, CF lung transplant setbacks due to a car accident, has been made possible with financial support from Mylan Pharmaceutical. Today, Jerry will discuss his August 2019 nightmare due to a car accident that resulted in a 7-week hospital stay, 2 surgeries, liver and spleen issues, and a long recovery. So in August of 2019, I had a car accident. I was on my way coaching and I crashed on the Hutchison Parkway, kind of zonked out at the wheel a little bit. And I guess from the car accident, I wasn't going very fast, like 30 miles an hour. The impact, the side impact, just created a lot of damage to my spleen. I had a lot of internal bleeding and I went right into surgery, and within 7-8 days the bleeding started again, the internal bleeding, and I had to go back to surgery. So within a 10-day period I had 2 surgeries, something that I thought was not that big of a deal. I mean, everything with CF I've kind of pushed through, and transplant pushed through it. But this was pretty serious. You know, they were talking about, a lot of liver issues, liver transplant. I do see a liver transplant team now, and at some point, they say to me, well, you're not ready yet, but you may need a liver transplant. I've spent basically, it was like two months in the hospital, and I look back on that, I'm like, God, 2 months, that's a long time. And remember the doctor saying that, recovery is going to be a while. So and I said, what do you mean it's going to be a while? Like a couple of weeks and stuff? He goes, no. He goes, really, for every day you've been in the hospital, it's like 3 days recovery. And I say recovering, I'm really tired all the time. Naps, I'm taking naps. I never took naps in my life. So there I am taking naps midday. I wake up in the morning and I'm exhausted. So, if you put that in perspective, I'm in the hospital for 2 months, and then the recovery is probably another 6 or 7 months easily. That's just recovery. That's not getting back to where you are. So here we are in February. I got out of the hospital in end of September, so you're talking October, November, December, January. So, I'm still recovering. Once I get back to where I was feeling, then it's a question of, okay, let's take it to the next level and let's get in shape. Because I'm not even talking about getting in shape, I'm just talking about recovery. A couple of times the doctor would say, Jerry, you don't realize how sick you were. And it's gonna take you a while to get back. It's just not gonna happen. Because I always had this thought that, well, I'll be fine. And a lot of the things like posting on social media and whatnot, I stopped doing because I figured, well, I'll take a few days break. When I finally got out of the hospital, I realized some people just never even knew that I was in the hospital. Not that I told them, but you start to assume like, oh, everybody knows everything about you, but they don't. So I just decided just to throw it up there and toss it on the wall and see what happened. So, the response was good. There was a lot of questions, but really it was done more for me just to kind of come to the realization that, hey, here I am and I'm not invincible, and I have a lot of faults and things that I have to deal with due to cystic fibrosis and due to lung transplant. Being in the hospital, it's like life stops. I always try to be like tough and that nothing bothers me, yeah, everything's fine, and it wasn't fine. And the only saving grace is I had a room that had a beautiful view of the water and the George Washington Bridge, and You know, on sunny days, I would just sit there and it was just very peaceful. I was just kind of like in a space of like, you know, like what's next and how much more of this can I go through and do. When you have a transplant, you have your immune system is obviously somewhat shut down. You take immune suppression drugs, otherwise your body would reject the organs. So anytime there's an issue with an infection, surgeries and stuff, they have to kind of drop it down because your body won't fight off. That's always the thing with a transplant. You can't stop taking the anti-rejection drugs. If you stop taking them, your body's response right away is to fight off the foreign object. And right now, even after 7 years, 7.5 years, my body will fight off the lungs. So it's really a balancing act then, because they have to start adjusting your medications, your anti-rejection drugs, or there's no way your body will fight off whatever infection you have. So they have to start dropping your immune suppression drugs. Then I was on IV antibiotics for my pneumonia. I was on medications for my spleen, liver, getting shots. I mean, it just was just never ending around the clock, and they were helping to try to drain a lot of the fluids, so I was on IVs to help drain the fluids. I was getting, you know, bags of platelets and blood because, you know, everything was a mess. It's not so much that I kept the accident, I would say, a secret. It was just like, who wants to look at any fault? You know, I mean, to me, a lot of growing up with CF was like a fault. And I didn't want to look at it like, you know, well, this is it, you know, I'm really going downhill now. So yeah, I mean, it's pride, it's your self-worth, and it's just the way I've lived my life, and not, you know, not getting involved and sharing a lot of the stuff about CF and the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was not something I would wish upon anybody, or hopefully nobody has to go through that. So the first thing I did when I got home after 7 weeks or 50 days in the hospital was sleep. It's like coming out of a war zone. It's good just to sit back and, you know, take a deep breath and let it all go, and just try to then say, okay, it's time to move forward. Trying to get back to where you were is both frustrating and it's also motivating. You know, there's, you know, and you don't have a choice. I mean, you do. You could sit there and say, well, this is it, I'm old and I'm out of shape and that's the end of it. Or, you know, the silver lining is that you get motivated and you think, hey, listen, I'm going to get back. And you think of ways to reinvent yourself. And it's not easy, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's days that I was like, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore. But what's the alternative? So I'm getting back. I'm not nearly where I want to be. And I'm hoping by, you know, June that, you know, I'll be ready to rock and roll more and be biking outside and go from there. I'm blessed and very fortunate with my family, you know, people I work with, and, you know, the people that I've probably been the closest to now is my medical team. The support that I've gotten at New York Presbyterian and Columbia University Medical Center has been phenomenal. I had my transplant there, the team of doctors, my CF center is there, my liver team is there now. So yeah, I have a very big team of doctors, and, you know, in the hospital, the care that I received from the nurses was just phenomenal. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more.